Hello, nuts and nerds, and welcome back to A Squirrel Plays. Today we're going to be talking about some helpful tips for making your own TTRPG setting. And really, this isn't just limited to TTRPGs, but I put it in the title because that seems to be what most people are here for. But for those of you who dabble in other assorted storytelling mediums, worry not, because it still applies. Now, am I going to give you a step-by-step process on how to come up with your own setting? No. And why not? Because that's silly. A step-by-step process for something creative kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? Not exactly creative unless the steps look something like create something, distribute your something. But more seriously, a process that works for one person may not work for the other. Like it or not, a lot of us are very different, we work different, we think different, and in my case, we look and sound a little different too. So what I'm going to do instead is show you some things that have worked for me, as well as some of the madness they have helped create. I won't say what they helped make was actually good, but the method did help me get from point A to point B. So let's go! All right, y'all ready to get down to it? First one is pretty straightforward. Just think of something that you really like and want to use, and then go from there. Now, that thing doesn't have any requirements. Let's use Star Wars as an example. The father and son dynamic between Vader and Luke could be that thing you really like and want to use. An evil galactic empire with complex political issues going on could be the thing that you want to use. Or maybe you just really like the idea of laser swords in space and wanted to work with that. Personally, my favorite part about Star Wars was the droids. I even had this book as a child, and it was great. Not important though. Whatever tickles your fancy and gets that fire started, you can work with. And when you find that special thing, it's time to start asking yourself some questions. Why is it this way? How did it get this way? How does it work? And this is going to sound like a very shameless self-promotion, but I'm going to do it anyway because I think it's a really good example of what I'm trying to get at here. For those of you that don't know, I'm working on a series of standalone novels called Kesho Knight Legends that all take place within the same fictional universe. Currently, only one novel is published, with another currently going through the editing phases. And of course, there are several others that I've laid out some groundwork for that will come sooner or later. Now, since all of these take place in the same universe, it probably comes as no surprise that I have spent a lot of time world building. I have documents upon more documents of lore that I've cobbled together like a madman. So much so that I even ended up making my own world building tool to try and keep up with this stuff. And believe it or not, it wasn't done in PowerPoint. It's actually a bazillion Word documents being connected together through an Excel document. Looking back, I have no idea how I managed to make that work. But anyway, my point is there's a lot going on there. A whole universe, you might say, complete with castles and dragons, ancient and forgotten lore, religions, civil wars, political strife, fantasy creatures and species, magics, and even my own fictional booze. And do you know what spurred the idea of that entire universe? These things. And if you're wondering what the heck those are, they're weapons from an older video game called Phantasy Star Online. That's it. I just thought the idea of medieval weapons having the energy edge on them was really cool and wanted to see more of it. But I wanted it in a fantasy setting instead of science fiction, so I asked myself, how are these weapons powered? How about a magical crystal? Because that's super original. Where did the crystals come from? Let's say they came from the gods. Why did the gods give them to the people of this world? They didn't. They fell from the heavens because something bad happened. What was the accident that happened? There was a dispute amongst the gods, and somebody tried to take the powers of the others. There was a holy war. Things happened. Angels and demons fell. Down came the crystals. One thing led to another, just trying to justify these crystals' existence solely so I could have my cool laser swords. And yes, those crystals became Kesho Knight. Now, if you've read my book and you're thinking, wait a minute, Squirrel, there wasn't a single laser sword in that book. What happened? Well, that's how far out of hand things got. I have a whole timeline of events to work through before we even get to the dang things I wanted in the first place. And then I also have a series of events that take place after that, and the world enters a post-apocalyptic state where the Kesho Knight stops working. And again, all of that simply because I wanted to use these silly things. One little spark can go a very long way. Alright, so I really hate the saying, restriction breeds creativity, but you probably won't ever hear me say that it's wrong. I don't like it because I don't like being constrained. I want to be free. Unfortunately, some of my best work has come from working within constraints. So let's talk about a couple different ways that you can do that. Some of you already know this, but I like to do some work with the End of Planar Crossroads because there's some really good creative exercises we do over there. Adam has been field testing a new formula the past few months, but what we had done in the prior year was use songs as our points of inspiration. See, each month has a certain theme that we work in, so that's our first constraint. For example, August last year was August Abomination, so we leaned into the Lovecraftian type of setting. Now, I got to pick the song we used for this one, and I was never allowed to pick again because I chose Hunger from the 1986 Transformers movie. But I used that to come up with the idea that the players are all cursed and becoming their own type of Lovecraftian monster and have a burning hunger inside of them they have to deal with. They could consume other people, but as they did, they'd become more and more of a monster themselves. This came with shiny new special abilities, sure, but it also made other things more difficult. But the whole point was to hunt down where this curse came from and figure out a way to undo it, which may or may not involve crossing over into another realm and fighting Cthulhu himself or something silly like that. You get the idea though. 2 prompts was all it took to get there. Another way you can do this is to use something a lot of us are familiar with considering the nature of the channel, and that is roll tables. Solo games, or games with some solo options such as Tricube Tales, typically have an abundance of tables to use. For example, while working on the script, I decided to roll through the tables for distant voyages to see what I got. Oh, I rolled for a call to like and subscribe. I rolled a platform or oil rig, abandoned ship, and a kraken or shark attack. So let's say you're in a modern setting. You find the oil rig, and much like the ship next to it that you find, it is completely abandoned. Nothing is destroyed, but there is no sign of life whatsoever. As you're exploring the abandoned rig, big, nasty, kraken tentacles start creeping up the rig trying to get you. Did the oil rig drill too deep? Did its noise awaken something that's been sleeping for centuries? Did mankind disrupt the balance of nature, and this beast is here to bring order? You now have multiple ideas to explore, and as you ask yourself questions and start answering things, your setting will start to flesh itself out. Some questions to ask might be, why wasn't the boat or rig destroyed? Why would the kraken be so careful to only take out the people? Was it even the kraken that removed everyone, or was it something else? What if the kraken is actually extremely intelligent and leaving the empty rig and boat there was meant to act like a warning or spook factor, similar to bodies on a pike in front of a fort? A fort. A fort. Bodies on a pike in front of a fort. Now you got a monster that's not only massive, but dangerously smart. Why only warn the humans? Maybe the kraken wants some kind of peace. You get the idea. Ask questions, explore, but it all starts with just a few rolls. In case you haven't figured it out yet, asking questions is a great way to go about this process, but what if you started with, well, the thing I just said, the question, what if? For example, what if we had flying cars like the world thought we would by the year 2000? Considering I live in an area that managed to consistently rank in like the top 3 for having the worst drivers, I'm going to say not great. So let's try something a little better. Something like, what if the moon was a prison for magic users? That raises some more questions, right? Why are we imprisoning magic users? How the heck are they getting there? And there's probably some fancy term for this, like the exploratory method or discovery method, but I'm going to call it the hot mess method. Asking questions is great, and I've already talked about that a little in the previous sections, but this time we start out with the specific one, what if? And once upon a time, I was a huge fan of mind maps. Still am, honestly. I just get a little paranoid over which software to use. I had one I used for a very long time that just kind of stopped getting support at one point, and now I can't use it anymore. Trust me, being paranoid over software life is a big issue for me. I hate it so much. Technically, you can mind map in a text document. It's just not as pretty, and you can only tab over so far on the page. But my point is there are plenty of options out there, and a mind map can be a great way to start exploring these questions. You start out with your what if, like we did earlier. Then those individual questions we asked each get their own thought branch. Or if you're in a text document, they'll be on their own top level of the list. And this is why I prefer mind maps over the text, because I always feel like the questions have to be in a certain order since you read top to bottom, whereas in a mind map, they're just kind of floating around wherever. That might just be me though. But as you attempt to answer questions, you'll realize you have more questions to ask along the way, gradually building and fleshing out the setting. If you don't have an answer for something right away, you can just hop over to a different question. There's been plenty of times where a lingering question gets answered on its own while I was working on something else. You'll also start connecting more things as you progress. And that's why I like to call it the hot mess method, because it absolutely looks like one. Now, I will say this process is very similar to what some people do in the writing world, and something that I should do more than I do, but I'm kind of lazy. And that is interviewing your characters. And yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. If you have a character you've made, start asking them questions. How would they respond to X, Y, or Z? I took a bunch of questions from various places and built myself a small vault to pull from. Now I can just click a button and get the question at random and fill them out as I go. Some questions are easy, some are more challenging, and some are just plain weird, but it really helps you get to know your character, and it can also help flesh out a setting more. But you get the idea. Asking questions is how we learn, right? So that's how you learn about your character. And in this case, that's how we learn specifically what all is in the setting that we're making. I also find that the hot mess method allows me to squirrel brain and focus at the same time. Instead of zooming out and trying to look at everything all at once, I can hone in on one specific question and run with it wherever it may take me, which is usually to another question, another idea, another thought, another question, and you can see where the squirrel part takes over. After a while, you'll find yourself with a huge mind map or text file, and you can start connecting things together for something a little more coherent. It's a messy process, but it works. For me, at least. Alright, so hopefully you got some use out of this. It's pretty much just asking yourself a ton of questions, but we looked at various ways to get a starting point. But we're at the end of the video, which means shout out time. First off, shout out to all of you new folks that came in from the last video. But more specifically, shout out to Griffin Spade. He's been closely following mine and Jacob's journey of working on our Easy D6 playset, which, by the way, unless something happens, we'll be streaming more of that in just a few hours after this video goes live. Anyway, if I didn't know any better, I think he's been watching those streams in full from front to back. And since you're so interested, Griffin, I went ahead and put you down for 100 copies when the book goes live. I'll send you the bill in the next couple of weeks. And with that taken care of, ladies and gents, I hope I have spurred some inspiration and given you something new to work with and try. If not, I hope you were at least entertained. You can tell me what's your preferred approach for making a whole new setting in the comments down below. Squirrel out!